All right, Pike, you got to do the intro song.
I can't remember it. But
Okay.
how does it start?
All right. It started with you talking about how much you love Star Trek Voyager first.
Um. Well, I don't love it, but like. Listen, it has problems, but I can watch it and be like, yeah, this is fine.
What was the
Like,
one that you
God,
thought was? Man, you've really mellowed out. I thought you had hated it. I can't believe you're so out of character. We're only in season
no,
two of our
no,
podcast.
no, 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 no. I know exactly. There's two things that I hate. It's any episode that deals with the Neelix, what's her name, relationship, because you know why. Um,
Was it Vex?
or I think that's her name. The one who's like 1 year old, and it's just like, nope, nope, I don't like this. I
You
don't
know,
like this.
if anyone
Anyway,
here, if anyone here has no context for that, I feel like we have to. In Star Trek Voyager, they meet an alien species that presumably only lives 7 years, which is interesting because I think that was the
mhm,
intended because TNG and DS9 were both basically planned for 7 years. So I think they were gonna have her for the full series and have her go from like a 1 year old to a 7 year old. But she's a fully grown person. Like it's played by a full like an adult actress, right? And it's just like,
yeah.
but she's 1 years old, and it's like she has a relationship with this like alien guy, and you're sitting there thinking like, I get that you're an adult for your species, but I'm still very uncomfortable with
But
this, especially when they
yeah,
bring it up. Like whenever
yeah,
they
just
like, I'm only one. I'm sitting there like, please stop talking about that. That is so
stop
weird when you
saying.
say this to your boyfriend.
Yeah, it. Everyone just yeah. Like, anyways,
It's like look
and
whatever it's that that part's weird in Voyager, and for some
and,
reason we're talking about
and then
Voyager because I was what's the other
no
thing you
joke.
hate?
The other thing, the ending, just the
That's
end,
fair.
like
That's fair.
the way. Yeah, it's just like, oh, we don't like. There's no real way to end it well, I think, but that was like the worst way of like we don't even have like an award ceremony or like a solemn moment with them. It's like, nope, we arrived at Earth, welcome home, and it's like, yep, that's
Oh
the
no,
song. It's like,
I think there's plenty of ways you could do it well, but they just didn't. Either way,
yeah.
we're talking about DS9 though,
Hmm.
so DS9 is really good. And what I will say is this episode is pretty good. I gave this one a B so far. I know I'm kind of spoiling my
Uh,
opinion of the episode, but I gave it a B. There's not really any issues that I found. I think. Oh, I should have grabbed my notes, but uh, let me see if I can grab my notes real quick. But in the
what are your
yeah,
notes?
in generally this episode, I was fairly impressed with most of what they were doing. There was a few
Mhm.
really good scenes, and I think it's pretty safe to say that at least at this point in the series, I think Kira's the
Mhm.
main character of DS9.
Oh yeah, at this point, Kira's like really heavy focused, and it's like it makes sense. She is like one of like we're dealing with the Bajoran shit. Like this is Bajoran like shit. Like yes, there's Cardassians, and that means okay, Starfleet and such, and it's like yeah, it's a Starfleet. But Kira is the central focus here. All and it's just like yeah, like
Well, it's not even like just this
the
episode. Like season one had her go on an arc, probably the most
yeah.
decisive arc. Like Odo doesn't really have an arc. We more just uncover more about him because he's a reserved
Hmm.
person. So you strip away at what's already there. He doesn't like really change as a person in season one.
Hmm.
Cisco,
Hmm.
we get criminally too little of. It's Kira who has a full arc, full story. Like, so at this point, and this episode's all about her and basically trying to find a place after she basically gets replaced in the end of last episode. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, I think it's safe to say, at least at this point in the series, Kira is the main character, and
Yeah.
given how most of the stories revolve around her, that's very interesting. Now, there's two things I know I'm going to want to talk about a lot going forward in this episode, so we should probably get right to the plot.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
let's see. I'm going to make sure we get the proper visuals because we get the first time we get a last time on DS9. I
Last
think this is the
time on
first time.
DS9.
So yeah, Kira was replaced. That was the sort of big drama after they found Lenalis, and we have a scene. Let's see. Da, 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 da.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, well, hold on. What was the first scene? For some reason, my transcripts. telling me something else. Okay, no, actually. So uh, I guess Minister Jaro is talking with Cisco. And more or
Yeah.
less, Cisco's kind of complaining because he wants Kira to remain.
Yeah.
And Jaro is like, I thought you didn't get along with. I thought you didn't get along with Kira. And he says, Kira has my complete respect. She's been invaluable in establishing this command post, and now she's been dismissed without anyone consulting me, and I don't appreciate it. And the way he says it,
Yeah.
the way Avery Brooks says it, it's like, yeah, the whole arc between these two was respecting one another, and he just outright admits, yeah, she has my respect, like completely.
Yeah.
And I will say again, we've had some of those issues where Kira says some things that are very questionable, but I think definitely after Duet, where she shows she can be unbiased with her decision
Mm-hmm.
making, I think he probably is like, yeah, I trust you 100%. And obviously Jaro and him are basically talking past one another as Jaro's trying to say he doesn't want Kira here, he wants Leonalis here, and Cisco's unhappy with that. Let's see, but
Yeah.
there is one thing that I did like. Now let's see here. Jaro is also admitting that it is very dangerous right now with all the fighting going on Bajor. And Cisco uses this weird turn of phrase. I don't know if it's an actual thing, Pike. Maybe you can correct me. He
It,
says, for a minute, I was
I
thinking to myself, there's a warm wind blowing in from McCoy, Mini Coy.
I don't think
You think it's
it
just made
is
up
a
for the.
real one.
That's fair.
Yeah, because I've only um like I remember like being like that is a weird saying when I first saw it and I looked it up and I pretty much always look it up because I'm like that's such a weird fucking saying. All that said like because it's a like town and island near India actually. It's an actual place on Earth, but there's no saying for it and the issue is it's like uh it's very because he says an ambassador from there from Minicoy and it's very weird because it's like oh but it's a part of India itself like
Well,
it
I imagine
I
the phrase must be used somewhere other than in India because it would be used in the place where the ambassador goes.
yeah
However,
well the issue is it's like oh this isn't like a state this is an island that's a part of a territory of India it's like it's a very weird like I,
yeah, no, that's fair.
whenever
But it's obviously just used to subtly insult this minister because the story goes it all started when a famous ambassador for Minikoi, this is what Cisco's saying to him, from Minikoi used to bluster, exaggerate, and dissemble to get what he wanted, not at all like you or me. He was big, he was a bag of hot air, and everyone recognized him for what he was. And then there's just like this stare that Cisco gives the minister.
just like
And of course, he
mm.
was like, oh, not like either of us, of course. Wink, wink, it's totally you, dumbass.
It's you, dumbass. Yeah,
But
it's not really that subtle. Like it's just I like normally I'm like, oh, I like the talking in the show, but it's like, oh, it's a very unsubtle insult. It's like the fact he says it's
I
not
think
like
it's almost subtle enough because I think more of it would work better for someone who you're not super familiar with.
mm,
So we know Cisco, we know kind of what he values and what he likes. So saying something like
mhm,
this would be in a way like, oh yeah, like we know he's probably speaking like backhandedly at the ambassador or the minister, but the minister
mhm,
doesn't know Cisco that well. Admittedly, he
mhm,
even thought like Cisco didn't like Kira, right? So he doesn't know him that well.
mhm,
So it's like
mhm,
he probably sitting there thinking like, is this guy speaking about me or not? I can't tell, and therefore I can't respond because that would be like
mhm,
uncouth of me. But
mhm,
anyway, Jaro is like leaves. He says like, look, we're entrusting you with Bajor's greatest hero. You know, we're doing you a favor. We're giving you this great guy. He leaves, and then Cisco gets a call. It turns out the Circle has put their mark on Cisco's like apartment with his son. So
mhm,
clearly a direct threat to them. I don't. Nothing really
mhm.
comes about because of this, other than they're trying to investigate it. But
Yeah,
it's not
it's
even like,
just a way to say like we can get you.
yeah.
Which saying that to a black man is not a like
Oh, gee. I mean,
ooh.
obviously that's the thing. But I don't know if that's what they're trying to invoke here. Obviously, there's times when they did it last episode. They had a Jake's Bajoran girlfriend. Her father said, "No, we're not going to have you date a human." Like that clearly could be
Yeah,
allegorical, right? I don't know if this is necessarily meant to be
yeah.
allegorical if anything in real life. I think it's much the stronger interpretation is definitely we can get you. Like they got to his apartment because in the last
Mhm,
episode and they showed it in the flashback, they drew the same symbol on like a low security area. I would imagine where Cisco sleeps is a pretty high security area. He's the commander of
Mm-hmm.
the station.
Mm-hmm.
So just obviously a threat. And then we get what is kind of the best scene here. It's a complicated one, so we're gonna have to like go through it pretty carefully. It starts with Kira and Odo arguing. So
Mm-hmm.
Odo is basically pissed that she's not putting up more of a fight. Uh,
Yeah.
and he says, "You're not just leaving, Major. You're surrendering." Uh, and she's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, "Look, you break the rules, you pay." Like she's kind of accepted. Yeah, this is just kind of what happened. And Odo basically says, like, Major, you've been breaking rules for years. You've been breaking one too many rules for 14 and a half years. Cardassian rules, Bajoran rules, Federation rules, they're all meaningless to you because you have a personal code, and that's always mattered more. I am sorry to say you're in slim company. And it was funny when I was taking notes, I paused to write, yeah, like Odo is clearly saying that he respects her because, like me, you have your own personal code.
Yeah. I was
Because we,
about to bring it up.
yeah, but and then when I unpaused it, it was Kira saying like, "I miss you too. I'll miss you too, Odo." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Is Odo is saying in his roundabout way, I want you to stay here. I will miss you if you're not."
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really like that. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
let's see. Odo again is kind of just saying like, "Why haven't you done more?" But then, and this is where this scene very much feels like a stage play because then Dax comes in the room. She's
Mm-hmm.
returning some sort of like lotion that I guess Kira loaned her. Uh, and the way
Oh,
the
I think
dialogue
look.
is presented is it's so back and forth. Again, it feels like a stage play because of how they're responding to each other with like high energy as if they're projecting their voice. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, uh, I thought I better return this epidemic lotion, and Kira's like, no, if you like it. And Dax immediately interrupts. It's like, oh, it's wonderful. And Kira's like, well, then keep it. Like just the speed and pace at which this like conversation happens is very
Pals.
like,
Listen,
no.
gals being
What?
pals. Okay. Respect.
Yes, but it's literally like because then Bashir walks in, uh, and he's just like he
Mm-hmm.
didn't like bring a good goodwill gift, and he's like, it's like, oh, I wanted to give you my best, and Dax is like, well, that's pretty dull. And again, it's just every character going back and forth. It's like Dax, Kira, Bashir, Odo, Dax, Kira, Bashir. It's like you just have all these like characters going back and forth. It's very high energy, very fun. And then, of course, O'Brien comes in, and he's very humble, so he kind of realizes like all these officers are here, and he tries to like blend into the background. And Kira keeps pulling him to
Mm-hmm.
the front. She's like, "No,
Mm-hmm.
O'Brien, come up here, because like she's trying to basically like put him between the other people who are constantly talking to her."
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Mm-hmm.
see. And then they keep talking. It keeps going back and forth, and they keep interrupting each other, and they have to like stumble over their words. It almost feels like I almost said well rehearsed improv. That would obviously not make sense. It feels like this was something they may have improved and then refined the way it kind of goes about. It's
Sorry,
like,
I'm just um the whole like improv versus like like just that comment it's like this
when some people
joke.
talk, it seems like well rehearsed improv, but
Yeah. Well, there's like this one jokes like they all like these comedians were showing these images of like you have to make the sound of it. At first it was like animals and such, but eventually it got to the absurdism of like one of the guys was given this picture of this like guy in a button-up shirt with jeans on. He looks real fun leaning against the wall, and his joke was, "Yeah, so we're trying to combine a both uh improv and sketch comedy together. We got a great team of Mike, Matt, David, Matt, Mike, Big Mike, and just going on and on about like the stereotypical improv comedic group that isn't anything special. Sorry, it made
all
me
right.
sorry.
But no, it's fine. But like I was saying, it's like this feels like something that was almost improvised and how they're speaking to one another,
Yeah.
and then refined for the purposes of like, oh yeah, it was a real like they put them all on set. They're like, hey, we're gonna try and have you improv a scene where this stuff is happening, and you guys can
Uh-huh.
like interrupt each other, go back and forth, and they probably it obviously would not have sounded great the first time around. But then they took that as the
Oh yeah.
idea. That's what it almost comes across as. Or like again, it comes across as either an incredibly well paced like stage play or something that was like again, it feels very natural. It's a really cool scene. And then of course, Quark comes in. He just shows up and brings
Uh,
alcohol.
yep.
Uh
One
let's
last
see.
try at getting
Yeah,
Kira. One last try.
unironically, like he's being very nice, and oddly enough, Kira's almost receptive to it. It's weird. How, like, what does she
Yeah.
say? It's like uh
My favorite synth
oh
is
yeah,
small.
no, she gets the synthale. It's a small bottle, unfortunately, and Quark's like, I didn't think there'd be a whole party here. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And then, of course, all of this,
Yeah.
it serves a really interesting purpose. It immediately stops when Vedic Burial walks in.
Yeah, they know.
Like suddenly it becomes very awkward. Like the friend group like parts uh and like
Mm.
separates so that Kira and Baral can like look at each other. And
Mhm.
let's see, I'm gonna try and get some. Yeah, Baral's like, oh, I hope I'm not interrupting. And they're like, oh, we didn't know you were coming. He's like, yeah, it's kind of best not to announce where you're going these days when you're a high profile person. And
Yeah.
he basically, once Kira kind of admits that she doesn't really have anywhere to go, he invites her to come to the monastery for a bit.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's where Kira will pretty much be spending the rest of the episode. She heads down to the monastery and briefly becomes like a monk. I guess like anyone can kind of just go to the monastery and they'll just like let you chill there for a while if you're having some sort of spiritual crisis, or maybe Kira gets
Yeah.
special permission.
It seems to be a very like, hey, you know, this is the spiritual need. Like, it's both a place for the monks themselves, but it's also a place for a very religious people to find peace and harmony. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and they might become monks after staying there a bit, or they might, find what they need and then move on. Like,
Well,
and the
again,
monks are like, that's fine.
there's something really big I want to talk about when we get there. So, the next scene we have is like
Mm.
Lee Nollis coming to the bridge for the first time. He's sort of saying like, I'm sorry, I didn't want this job. I didn't think this was going to happen. Kira's obviously like, look, it's clearly not your fault. These things just happen. And Lee, we know from the previous episode that Lee Nollis was sort of given too much credit for his accomplishments. He's just a regular
Yeah,
guy, and now he's been
yeah,
given this huge status, and it's kind of like, I don't think I can do this, but I understand politically, unfortunately, our hands are tied.
yep,
So,
yeah,
although we do have a nice scene where Cisco greets Lee Nollis and then kind of dismisses him, and when Lee Nollis says, I'll try and do my best, but I know I can never replace Major Kira, and Cisco just like looks at Kira and says, no one could. Again, kind
mm,
of just accumulation of their entire dynamic from the first season is like
mhm.
Cisco basically acknowledging it's like, yeah, you're my friend, you're my number one, like we're a team. Let's
Besties.
Yeah,
They
besties.
get they get matching war criminal bracelets later on, like besties.
Well, truly, it's
Mm.
Cisco kind of teaches her how to be an officer, and she teaches him how to be a war criminal. It's
I'm
really
sorry,
just
are you implying? Okay, given who his mentor is later on and who his friends end up being, that are revealed, it's like no. This was always within Cisco. It's just
man,
the war.
the death of his wife really kind of he had some demons to work out still.
Yeah.
They kind of like to present the idea that he's overcome some of the last of his trauma in episode 1 of season 1, but no, really it was there, it was building. He was ready to unleash it. No one's
Yeah.
really going to
Don't.
know what we're talking about until we get to the Dominion War, but regardless, uh,
Um.
so we have a scene where Cisco basically like Cisco's like, I'm going to get you back, Major. I promise that to both of us. And Kira doesn't really acknowledge it, but she gets in the turbo lift and says goodbye. And then we get
Well, she
to
doesn't need to acknowledge it. She
oh
knows
no,
he's
yeah,
gonna do
obviously. Well, that's kind of what it is. It's this command of like, I'm doing this, and she's not saying
it.
kind of anything else. Like again, because of her argument with Odo, right? There's this element of she's kind of just accepted this is the way things are. Part of her
Hmm.
probably secretly wants this because she's tired. That was kind of acknowledged last episode. There's like this tiredness to her. She's like, we keep fighting and these problems keep stacking up. Like there's not a fruity Bajor. There's not like, it has to be disheartening that you fought for 14 years and
And now
then
all this shit is happening. It feels like they're gonna just
well,
throw it
it's
out
like
the window.
what were we fighting for? We were trying to stop the Cardassians, and now we're fighting
Yeah.
each other. Like it's like what the fuck.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so we get a scene where Kira and Bareil are having a conversation. She's apparently trying to build like a stone path in this little river, and she keeps screwing it
Uh-huh.
up. And her conclusion is like, the stones are straight. I'm just crooked. And Bareil kind of like, she sort of says it as a joke, and Bareil takes it seriously. It's like, is that really how you feel? And she's like, look,
Yeah.
I have no artistic skill. I have no ability. Like I was the worst finger painter at the 4-year-old level. My parents were humiliated, and like she's like, I need something to do, otherwise I'm useless. And Baral's like, then maybe you should try feeling useless for a bit. Like be useless. Don't do anything. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
obviously that's like there's real moral philosophy that talks about just that ideal of yeah, like just let yourself do nothing for a bit. It's basically the core of meditation.
Hmm.
So it's really just an element of like Kira is someone who's very high action, high pace. She has to be doing something. So she clearly doesn't like the fact that she's not doing anything right now, but she's trying to engage with that.
Yeah.
So this
Well,
is something. This is
honestly,
oh yeah, go on.
this Th- so here's the thing that can be attached back to your what you were saying about how it's like, oh, like we keep doing stuff and it feels like nothing's changed. We're still just like basically going around in circles, like nothing I do, and it's like nothing I do helps. And it's like, well, maybe try doing nothing for a bit, and it can help you focus, or it can help you just find a better solution for
Oh
yourself
yeah,
and for
100%.
yeah
Because like right now she doesn't know where she's because the provisional government hasn't given her a position yet, which
yeah they've
as
implied
someone who's worked in government, it's kind of like okay, the position you're in's gone, and we're gonna give you another one, and then you don't hear from them for weeks, and you're sitting there like, guys, hello,
mhm.
like I'm collecting a
Oh,
paycheck, but I want some work to do here. It's like, don't worry, we'll find something for you. It's the
oh,
taxpayer's
that's me.
dollar.
Yeah, that's me waiting for the fucking recontract. Or like to either be told, "Hey, we're recontracting you if you want," or "No, we're not recon." And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, can you tell me so I know what I'm doing?
Well, obviously, there's always going to be issues with it, but in this context specifically, it definitely feels as if it's intentional. And
Mm-hmm.
we later learn that it kind of is. Now, we get to the
Yep.
part that I think is kind of questionable in terms of plot. So Barile
Mm-hmm.
tells her to follow Kira to follow him, and she brings him to
Mm-hmm.
one of the shrines. It's one of the orb shrines, and she says, "I've never been
Uh-huh.
to this part of the monastery before." Uh, and as she sees the orb, she's like, "Oh, like all my life, I've dreamed of this." We learned that this is the first time she's ever interacted with one of the orbs.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
I have a bit of an issue with this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so how many orbs are there? Because I think there's only like 7, right?
Uh.
And then there's like 13 or 14.
Uh. Orbs of the prophets. I really wish you would brought this up to me beforehand, and I could
I'm
have that
sorry. Well,
ready to go.
it's not a big deal because like my issue is more in the sense of like, okay, regardless of how many there are, I think we know. I think they mentioned there's like 4 billion Bajorans on Bajor at one point. There's a
Yeah.
large number of people. Feasibly, not everyone can stand in front of these and gain a vision, right? Like
Right.
it'd be something that's like you're going to be allowed to do this maybe once in your life,
If
but
ever.
my issue is more in the sense of anytime an orb is plot relevant, like someone gets to use it. Literally, episode 1 has Cisco use it. They don't know he's the emissary yet, although I guess maybe Kai Opaka might have suspected. And
Mm-hmm.
Dax uses it. Dax uses the orb of the prophets in episode 1.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like it's a little odd. I remember seeing this thinking like, really, you've never used these before? You seem to have a pretty strong like interaction and relationship with a lot of members of like I mean, you personally know like Vedic Barile, right? You personally
No,
know
no,
Vedic
no.
Win as much as you don't want to.
Here's the thing, though. For the longest time, remember how we were introduced to her in the first episode? Like,
Yeah.
first thing we saw, she was fucking arguing with like the provisional government, and I am absolutely certain there are like issues of well,
Oh yeah.
for one thing, that like her fighting with the provisional government, and they probably have interactions with the uh the religion even back then. They definitely do now. And then
I
two,
mean 100%,
Op-
but
Opaka lets Cisco see it because she knew like she had been told by the orb to
no, yeah,
not by the
100%.
orb, but
That's what I was
like
saying. I said that like Kai Opaka probably suspected he was the emissary based on some visions she might have had herself. But again,
uh-huh.
I guess we talked about this last step time when it came to the runabouts, which was
Hmm.
there's a level of the show is required to build up your expectation of what is realistic and expected. When they just
Hmm.
say, "Yeah, the runabouts can do this," I'm like, I guess I have to believe you, but it doesn't seem like
Yeah.
that was the case until right now.
No, wait, I know how to explain why he can't. It's
Okay,
probably like okay,
give
go
me,
ahead.
sorry, let me finish my point with that first, because my issue is just, and when in the first episode of DS9 you have two Federation officers just get to look at this orb for free, and they get to even take it and bring it onto the station. It's like, okay, these are your
Yeah.
super sacred artifacts. I understand if you have like multiples and you trust the people you're giving them to. I guess that's fair, but now to know that like most of the planet worships this faith and at the same time, like most of them don't even get to see one of these orbs in their whole life. It's one of those things where I'm just
Yeah.
like, you didn't really build that expectation for me, but I guess that's the case. But anyway, say what you want to say.
Yeah. So actually, um, fuck, I had another thing I was gonna say based on what you said. Yeah. No, no, I remember what I was gonna say based on what you were gonna say just now, like something you just said. Uh, so yeah, there are multiples, but a lot of them are lost or held by the Cardassians. So there's 9 in total, and it's like, yeah, but so that's another thing. And the only reason why they got to is because of Kyle Pocket, and it's like, okay, but anyways, the reason why people with connections, even with connections, normally do not get to see it is, do you know what Alexander the Great did before he went on campaign in Anatolia, and then the rest of the conquest with the Oracle of Delphi? Do you know what he did there at the Oracle of
Uh,
Delphi?
well, I'm going to imagine he picked a baller fucking title. I mean, let's be fair. Alexander the Great.
Okay.
It's like S tier in terms of
Okay.
titles.
Okay. Okay. So basically, during wintertime, the oracles at Delphi would not give prophecies. It's just not the time for it. And that coincides normally with like, yeah, we're not going to war right now, so we don't need prophecies and such. Um, but Alexander the Great's like, nah, fuck that. I'm going on campaign here in this fucking wild man fucking stuff. Literally, everyone, just so you know, Alexander the Great at first only had like enough gold to pay his army for a month in Anatolia. Literally was just like, yeah, we're just gonna raid shit as we go. Fucking wild. But the oracle, when he arrives and he's like, I want a prophecy, they're like, no, this is not the time for it. And he gets fucking pissed at them and was like, basically shoves aside the priest at the front, goes to the oracle, and basically makes the threat of like, you give me my fucking oracle, or you give me my prophecy, or they're gonna need a new priestess in here. And which is a very big social faux pas. There are probably like if you don't have normally if you don't have like a high ranking Vedic or Kyle the Kai's approval to see these things. You cannot see them, and um, like they touch on this
Uh,
in a minute as
well,
well.
perhaps yeah, they
But
do touch on it in a minute. What
like
I
you
would
kind of
say,
need to be offered it. You need to be offered it. You can't ask for it, and it's
I,
only when.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, like that's definitely fair. Like, I feel both like an individual who cares about seeing these things and knows you're kind of not supposed to act for it. It'd be like asking for like divine favor. It's like, okay, if you have to ask for it, you're kind of not going to be given it. Almost kind of like
Yeah.
that's kind of the idea is like you shouldn't have to be asking for it. But I
Hmm.
just again, all I was saying was my initial expectations of like the openness of these orbs being allowed to be used was something that I was a little bit like iffy on. For all I mean, also all the orbs do different things, so like
Hmm.
it'd be one of those things of like, okay, do you want to see the orb of prophecy and change or the orb of the past, or like what orb do you want to see if you do
More
get
of
a
a time.
choice? Yeah, there's the orb of time.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah.
but it's just it's one of those things where it's just a little weird. But either way, Kira gets a
Hmm.
vision. Ooh. So it starts off with her surrounded. She also looks very distressed as she's kind of going into the vision. But she's
Yeah.
inside the grand chamber and people are like clapping. And then Dax shows up in Vedic Wind's outfit.
Yeah.
Uh, and then she kind of like is telling her, it's very confusing. She's like, look, it's all right. You just have to listen. But then she transforms into Win. And
Hmm.
suddenly everything gets very menacing. Jaro appears, uh, and he says that the ministers are applauding him. Uh,
Yeah. It's the
Bar-
chamber minister.
yeah, then Barial appears in a major's uniform, which I was actually very confused about because at first I thought this was Lee Nollis because I saw the military uniform.
Wow. Wow, are you saying you cannot recognize
Well,
Bajorans if they
okay.
look?
In my
Mm,
defense, in my
mm, mm,
defense, in my defense,
mm.
there's a haze over the whole thing. I saw the military uniform and was like, that's not Barial. Barial wears the robes. And I was like, no, wait, that is Barial. Like, what's going on here? Like, I remember being just a little confused. Um, and then Kira's naked. I can show it on screen because it's TV appropriate, but like she's naked, she's just like surprised. So she's having one of those dreams where you're just like you're in front of your whole classroom naked or something like that. Uh,
Yes.
but uh,
Yes.
like Wind calls her a blasphemer, and then Baral appears next to Kira,
Wait.
also naked.
Does she? Hang on. Hang on. Does she actually say it as blasphemer or like?
No,
Is
she
that
says
you saying
she yells blasphemy at her. So yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm just like because the way you said is like blasphemy, like you're putting emphasis on the fee part. I'm like, never
Okay,
mind. Sorry.
that's
It's
just
just
my pronunciation. That's just my pronunciation. But anyway,
Floridians.
then Baral appears naked right behind Kira, and yeah, like I was watching this vision. I'm like, this is a really weird vision for the prophets to give, for your gods to give you. But all right. Um,
It's the
she
orb of prophecy.
she
It's
goes in to
gonna
kiss him,
happen.
and then she wakes up, which is like, man, that's just the orb being a dick at that point.
She got what
Like,
she needed.
I mean, I guess so. I just find it. The orbs are basically just teasing you. We're gonna give you these hyper realistic visions where the person you like is being intimate with you, and then bam, you wake up again. It's very awkward because the priests were watching you the whole time.
Mm.
Let's see,
No, I
but
think she's given privacy in that case.
oh yeah, no,
She's given privacy.
actually they do that a lot. I think that's probably standard because I think when Kai Opaka like showed the orb to Cisco, she like immediately like walks out of the room with purpose. So there's kind of that element of
Hmm.
like, yeah, we let you be alone with it. I don't know.
Yep.
It could literally be like we don't know how long they're in that vision. Like it could be a second, it could be like an hour, but it only seems like we only see the vision, but we have no idea how long they're in there. So it could be like
It
I
had to
gotta
be a
go.
little bit of time because Baral managed to get out to where they're hanging out before, and it seemed like that's probably like a good distance away. So yeah,
He just like
yeah.
left the room and then started to sprint. It's like, but
has, has
then
to
we
get
get
in
a
position for my dramatic seduction. Mm.
then we get to the another scene. I like this. So Odo's trying to figure out some sort of like trying to figure out who was where's the circle getting like funded, who's giving them their stuff. They apparently have tons of weapons, but no one knows who they're giving them to. And Quark shows up. Quark
Mhm.
admits that he definitely he has asked around and figured out where these are going. He's trying to also get
He's
off
panicking.
station. Oh yeah, he's panicking. He's like, we
Yeah.
gotta leave. Like I got branded last episode. We gotta go. These people have guns now. So he
No,
explained.
he says we need to leave. Well, not you. You can become furniture, but me, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna
Uh,
die.
yeah, but he tells Odo that the Krasari are the ones who have been like apparently giving guns to the circle, and
Oh.
Odo's like very like stressed. He's strict. He's like, oh god, this is getting dangerous. And he's like, let's see, um, Quark, I hate to do this, but I guess I have to. And Quark's like, no, that's not fair. And Odo's like, I haven't done anything yet. And Quark's like, whatever you're gonna do, it's not fair. And Odo's like, you're a deputy now. And Quark's like, it's
Mm.
not. Wait a minute, what?
Mm.
He's like, you're a deputy. Deputy, I want you to find out where the weapons are going to Bajor. Meanwhile, I'm going to find out exactly where they're coming from. Quark's like, you and
Mhm.
me, a team? And Odo's like, that's right. And then Quark just breaks out laughing.
Yeah, that's like the greatest comedic joke he's ever told, and he
Yep.
didn't even mean it as a joke.
But it's either he's like, it's either that or I'm putting you in a cell. And Quark's just like, that's not fair. On what charge? He's like, impeding an investigation, unless you want to reveal the identities of the people you've been talking to. And Quark's like, I can't do that. He's like, it's your choice. You're either a deputy or a prisoner. And Quark's like, I'm a deputy.
Yeah.
Get deputized.
Yep. That's rough,
Uh
buddy. You're
yeah, pretty rough. Um but it's funny because now we have Deputy Quark. So Cisco says he's gonna
Deputy
go.
Quark.
Cisco says he's gonna go down to Bajor. Lee wants to help, but like Cisco's basically like, nope, you stay here. It's safer for you here, but also, I want you to, get a feel for everything. Lee is clearly like nervous because he's like, if the captain's not here, I'm in charge, and I don't want to be in charge.
I don't want to be in charge. Yep.
Also, Cisco basically is like, let's see, hold on. Well, Lee is also uncomfortable because all the Bajorans are basically like treating him like a god. They're like, if I
Yeah.
sneeze, like there's 3 people handing me a handkerchief. Um,
Yeah.
but he gives a good recommendation. He's like, look, I think we need to establish a curfew. Another cargo bay was vandalized, and Cisco agrees. And he also says like, hey, I'm gonna have Odo assign you a bodyguard. Lee's like, I don't think that's necessary, but Cisco's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah. You are big target.
Well,
You
and
are
then we get
very.
why don't you describe the scene? Because I remember you messaging me one night where you were just talking about this scene because you thought
Oh
it was
my
amazing.
god. Mm. Okay, so, we leave the last scene with Cisco going down the tournament. We're back to the monastery. Kira comes out. Ryle's like standing there, all peaceful, like as a good, not Buddhist monk does. And she says, "Woodcrafts, definitely the way to go." And Baril's like, "Is that where the prophets led you?" Pretty much just like, "That's definitely not where they." And Kira's like, "Yeah, lots of hammers, nails, saws surrounded by monks and vendors, very safe and secure." And Burrell's just like, "You don't want to talk about it." Nope. And um and he actually, to make her feel comfortable with sharing, says, "When I encountered the third orb, you were part of my vision. It's the reason that I came to the station to invite you here." And Kira's like, just like, "Oh, what part did I play in your vision? It's not important. I was just wondering if I was part of yours." And Kira just bold faced lies, like, "No, no, you weren't." Burrell knows. Burrell
Uh,
knows.
I mean,
Anyway,
yeah, I'd wonder if his vision is the similar to hers in the sense of, by the way, you're both going to be naked. Uh, but
hmm,
also, one thing I do want
anyway,
to point out, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt
hmm,
you briefly because I wanted to point it out about last scene. The way Odo basically gives his choice is just more hyper authoritarian. Odo, you're either
oh
helping
yeah,
me or you're a criminal. It's like, dear God, Odo.
yep, yep, yeah.
Like,
Like Renee, you played a fascist. Don't act like you had a high ground. Don't act like Odo was innocent. Anyways, um, then they hear rumbling in the distance, which to the untrained eye, I mean ear, sounds like like a storm, like thunderstorm. Kira correctly IDs it. That's thunder. Though she calls it gunfire, but I'm just saying, like, no,
yeah, it
that's not like
it's
that
it
that
sounded
that's
it sounded
artillery.
like it did not sound like well, it is that, but I'm not gonna lie, it just sounds like thunder. I don't know what artillery sounds like. I don't know what space sci-fi artillery sounds like. It sounded like a storm, but
Uh,
she was like,
You
"No,
know
that's
what?
gunfire." I'm like, "Go on."
That is you just made me think. Like, what? We never see artillery, probably because we're never on the ground in an actual war in Star Trek. But it's like, I wonder what artillery is like in the future. Like, do you still use explosive? Like, anyway, but yeah. And then
Uh,
above the, after here,
no, yeah, go ahead. So, sorry,
now
finish it.
we get to the part I actually really like here because it's Win. Win shows up above them upon a bridge. Perfect usage of the high ground. Um, and she's just smiling at them like, how pleasant to come upon a flowing exchange of spiritual harmony. Brawl recognizes and says, "Better Win." Win looks to Kira and is like, we've met before, haven't we? Major, major. And it's just like, you literally got called out by this person 2 episodes ago in the season finale. And she's like Kira Nerys, and it's like, that's right, Major Kira from the space station. Just like so downplaying Kira in this
Oh,
moment, just
she's
talking,
100% smug,
just
100% like bitch mode.
oh
And
yeah, this is power. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and she's like standing on this bridge looking down upon them.
Yeah, it's so much power politics. I love to hate Win. She's just so great. And she asks, "What brings you here?" Barat says, "I do, Vedic Win." Win just looks at him, and smile. "Good for you, Vedic Baral. After working so hard, deserve a little recreation." And he actually looks down and like looks at Kira, and specifically his eyes seem to go to her chest, and she's like, in me watching, I'm like, I know what's being said in Baral's head right now. Like, fuck, she's right. I did bring here for that, for a little recreation. And he tries to cover with, and she's here to explore her paw. And again, when it's just like a worthy endeavor for someone who has led such a life of violence, child. And I'm sure the assembly would have had no objection to your encounter with an orb had Vedic Baral consulted us. Brower points out, like, that's just a formality. No one's ever been held to it. Wynn says, you're right, of course. But I've always consulted in advance. I think of it as a courtesy, nothing more, nothing less. How long will you be with us? Major Kira says, I'm not sure. Wynn says, feel free to stay as many days as you like. Even as a week if necessary. So this whole thing with Win is just so great. She comes upon them on the bridge. It's almost like she had this planned in her head. Like they're probably like she knew Baral had done this and knew where they would be afterwards. So she set up on the bridge over the path, right? And she's like, oh, just makes the assumption of like, oh, it's a flowing exchange of spiritual harmony. She knows it's not that, but and she very quickly establishes Kira is nothing to her. Just like major. Oh, from the space station. The space station that guards the fucking temple of this faith. It's like she knows who you are, Kira,
Oh, I mean,
but
100%.
yeah.
And
But
yeah, and
and then Baral gets it too of like, oh yeah, you brought her as a fuck date. I know what you're about, Baral. I know what the hippy dippy liberal form of our faith does. I'm watching you. It's like, ah. And then
and
again,
he
the
doesn't he
Grays.
doesn't. I want to point out. Pike doesn't mean liberal in our sense. I think Vedic Baril's actual position is referred to as the more liberal side of the Bajoran
Yeah,
faith.
yeah, he's on the like he's
Because
much like
Kai is Opaka. I'm sorry, I keep mixing up the names. Vedic Win, she is the Orthodox, like one.
oh yeah, like I
So
think
very,
specifically
very,
she's like described. She's ultra orthodox. Like she's very niche. Like there's generally like a faith will have like its orthodox and like liberal/slash reformed, and then the extremes of those two,
yeah,
as
sure.
niche. But anyways, Wynn's just like then tears her down further with the whole like, oh yes, like basically like, oh, a worthy endeavor for someone who has led such a life of violence, which to me is just read as like, oh yeah, you're the little rebel savage who has no idea what the rest of us went through for the during the occupation. Good
Well,
for
so
you
I
finally
mean,
coming around.
I don't know if I like that from her line because we do get something later with Win where they kind of do endear her to us a little bit more, and like how she suffered
Mhm.
during the occupation.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing up. Like people
No,
don't
I know.
understand what. Mhm.
Go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh well,
No,
I
no.
was just saying. I was
Like,
just saying. I don't know if Win would have really been like super against like basically she's insulting Kira for being like a rebel when those rebels are the reason the Cardassians are not ruling over you right now.
mhm,
Admittedly, that did get them the Federation, which is something that Win does not like. But
mhm,
it's an element of I don't know if a later Kai Win that we sort of learn more about would insult Kira that way. She might say it to
mhm.
piss Kira off, I guess, but I don't feel she
Oh
would
yeah,
mean it. I feel like personally she'd be sitting there like, you know, I hate the fact that I do have some respect for you. I feel like that would be more in line with the Kai Win we know later. So,
mhm,
but either way, uh, I wanted to say one thing about this. Like, they do confirm with the orb that you apparently need what's the group called? I wrote council down in my notes,
the
but they're the
assembly, the
the
assembly.
assembly.
Uh,
You apparently need quote unquote you need the assembly to see an orb, but that's not a
no, no, no.
formality that's
She never
used.
said. No, she says, you know, Baral says that's only a formality that's never been enforced, and she says, yes, but I've always done it as a courtesy of
No,
like,
I guess like
you
what I
know,
mean what I mean right is it's probably written down in some rule that you do have to have the assembly's permission, but again, it's not
mhm,
enforced.
mhm,
It'd be kind of like I don't even know what necessarily the real world equivalent would necessarily be, but it's just an element of like uh what was it called? I'm trying to think of like something from government, but I can't remember. I have some ideas, but really, it's just an element of this is not something that seems to be necessary, even if it's technically written down.
mhm,
And what I feel is, does that not mean anyone can kind of see them? Again, the way they kind of treat it is insanely liberal, but maybe it's like, oh, these guys are, I don't know, like you have to get like permission from, like you said, you have to be allowed shown them by a Vedic or someone. So
mhm,
I don't know. I think it's again they kind of treat these like anyone can kind of go to them when in reality these would be
mhm.
such precious artifacts that you would just not let anyone see without like months of pre-approval.
Yeah, agreed, agreed.
And then of course there's that final line: stay as many days as you like, even a week if necessary. Which is like, yeah. By the way, you should be gone soon, bitch. Uh,
Get out. I
and let's see here.
Get out.
This then we get to a scene I really like. We get to the war room scene. So
Yeah.
basically, Cisco goes to the war room and we meet General Krim. Krim is he's every time the Circle basically attacks a district, Krim is apparently just always withdrawing his troops. And Cisco's like, "Look, you
Yeah.
can't win a war that way." And Krim is like, "You do realize that the people we're fighting are other Bajorans, right? Like, I don't want to kill
Hmm.
them." Which again,
Yeah.
I think is because there's the implication that no one knows whose side anyone's on because this is he's essentially in charge of the military, and no one
Yeah.
knows. The question is who's the military going to side with? Are they going to side
Hmm.
with the Circle or are they going to side with the provisional government? Because theoretically, the military can go side with the Circle,
Yeah.
and so there is that worry. So we don't know what side Krim is on, and he's constantly retreating
Hmm.
his troops. So it's like, are you a bad guy, but you're just kind of like undermining the provisional government by constantly ordering retreats? But as he justifies it, it's like, anytime I tell my men to fight, they're killing their own kind. I don't want to do that. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I think that's a pretty good. I think it's interesting. And they
Well,
kind of get
yeah.
into a.
Like
Yeah, go on.
it's both like, oh, he doesn't want to harm them, but yeah, he is on the other side. As a spoiler, like he's on the other side. But like saying, "Oh, you're a bad guy." Like, here's the thing. This is I always hesitate to call like people in a civil war like bad guy, like because there's some where I'm like, yeah, there's some objectively like like this side is pretty awful, but here's the thing, like with what we know of Prim, I get him, and it's like I would not call him evil, like by any like you can
Oh
do a
yeah, no,
value judgment, like
I don't know if I'd say he's so the Bajorans are the Circle is very much like, apparently they do have
hmm
like racial purity views, which I don't even know
hmm
how that necessarily like. I don't know if Bajorans can intermingle. We know they can intermingle with one group of people. We don't, but we can't say anything about that just yet. In terms of like half breed children of like different like alien species, there's one we know that they can breed
half
with,
breed
but
children. Don't say half breed. That's a
that's
little.
fair. No, that's fair. I was referring to them as aliens, so I thought that was a bit different. But like, just, just, what would be the term I should use in terms of just like
Mm, uh,
mixed? Like, that's not a better term for
no.
aliens.
Uh, just
Interspecies.
like yeah. Let's go with
In,
interspecies. You're in
okay,
like
interspecial. I don't know what the term, because if it's interracial, it'd be like interspecial. Inter,
I guess,
regardless,
yeah.
either way.
Or we can just say like inter. What? Here's the thing though. Like if it was interspecies, it's like oh, it like it. I wouldn't say species because
Yeah, they
normally
can.
when we do like cross, yeah, like
Yeah, they have to
they
be
can
part of the same.
still,
I think they have to be part of the same genus. Which, if they're
yeah,
part of the
like
same genus, they have to be part of the same species. Um,
yeah. What? No,
so
I know how to explain this. You
no,
remember the
that's not true. Never
episode
mind.
in you remember the episode in TNG where they find out like yeah, all this life across the galaxy, we seeded it. And it's like okay, that's why. So I would just say interracial at
No,
this point. And just
that was retconned.
I don't care. That explains it.
Also, I said it wrong before. If you're part of the same species, you're part of the same genus. If you're part of the same genus, you're not necessarily part of the same species. But the point is, uh, I guess they have. I mean, there's definitely a concern of that, right? If they're very much like you have to be a pure Bajoran to live on Bajor, that's definitely not a great viewpoint. But I do understand maybe their
Yeah,
views if they don't want the Federation ruling over them, which is their concern.
yeah, yeah.
So
Like
I will
Krim doesn't seem to have the supremacist mindset. He's
I'm
simply
also
saying like,
I want to point out we're arguing a thing that hasn't been revealed in this episode. So
but yeah, yeah, but it's like yeah, but Krim's whole
we're
thing is
ruining up the
this whole.
continuity. What if someone watches this instead of watching DS9 and they're watching it vicariously through us? We have spoiled something. We've spoiled plenty of things before this.
Oh,
So,
oh, I'm sorry to the lazy person who did not watch the series beforehand and then gets mad. Like, you're only lazy if
what if
you didn't watch the series.
what if there's a dark future where every copy of DS9 gets destroyed and our podcast is the only record of it?
Cry about it.
That would be funny if that's the only way we get popular. All of DS9 is destroyed, and our like by then we have a full review of every episode of DS9. They're like, we have to go to this one. It's the only one. They go line per line some episodes. Like they
But
have
he
such
has that.
detail.
Hulk's is pretty okay, but that Pike guy's kind of an asshole. Yeah, but he's one half of it, so we gotta put up with him. Yeah.
But anyway, so there's
Future
one line I
people listening, future historians listening to the archaeological record. Fuck you. You deserve to be mocked. Anyways,
see, it's funny because you're a historian, but there's one line I really
I
do
say
like.
archaeology.
So Cisco basically tells them, yeah, the what are they called? The Krasari have given you all these or are giving these weapons to the Circle. Krim is just like, all right, that's good information to know. And then later Cisco says, I want Kira Nerys, my first officer, back. And Krim says, like, it's out of my purview. I can't do anything about it. And then as like Cisco's about to leave, he turns to him. It's like, you told me about the Krasari before you asked a favor regarding Kira. You could have tried to trade that information for a favor. And Cisco says, I wouldn't do that. And Krim's like, I remember that. Like,
Yeah.
again, a nice line in part because it's like Cisco gave them information that's partially necessary for their survival and their success. He could have leveraged it, but he chose not to, which is very indicative of his character. I really do like that. Let's see. We think kind of get like a scene that's a little skippable here. It's fine. It has to do with Lee Nollis. He's very uncomfortable, kind of like telling these Krasari that they have to stop to like have all their shipments checked. He's not comfortable in the position. The Zeph-No, which is the name of the Krasari, he's just getting mad and screaming. It's like, yeah, you keep telling me to wait. You keep like going through all my stuff. I have a deadline to meet. And then it's revealed O'Brien was carrying a box, set it back on their ship, said, hey, we're sorry to delay you. You guys are free to go. And then it's revealed that Odo was inside that box, or he was like on the side of the box, like disguised. And then he turned into a rat, and he's going to basically spy on them because this ship, basically, he's following this ship to where it goes because it's due back in like 4 days. So, more or less, like this is just their way of spying. And then we get the Monetary Garden scene with Cisco and Kira. So this is like Cisco basically telling Kira of what's going on because she is apparently very unaware, which I'm a little annoyed at because they did show her specifically noting the gunfire before. And it's like every day it gets closer. It's like, wait a minute. Like, once you hear it the first time, wouldn't you do something, Kira? But she's just kind of stayed here. I think it's fine because she probably just thinks like, it's just more of that fighting. She has no idea that it's like she doesn't know that it's getting worse. As far as she knows, it's always just the same. And Cisco's basically just trying to see if she's still willing to come back. And Kira's actually not sure herself. After her vision with the orb, she's kind of like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. There's so much I want to go back, but I don't know if I can. And she kind of like leaves, and Cisco has to like get back to his work, but Kira's not. Kira kind of says a line that's a little bit like indicative that she wants to go back soon, like she'll be there soon, but right now she's staying where she is. And it's very funny because like once Cisco walks away, Kira's like literally he walks off into the bushes. Kira like then decides, okay, I'm gonna go my own way, and suddenly 3 guys in robes just jump her, like knock her unconscious. It's like, guys, I just want to point out, Cisco's like right over there. Like, I know you don't want to actually start a fight with the Federation right now, but like he's right there. I mean, you might, maybe, I don't know. Like theoretically, they could kill him and blame it like on someone else, but so then we have Odo spying. Turns out that a Cardassian beams onto the ship. The Cardassians are supplying the Krasari with guns. The Krasari are then supplying the Bajorans with weapons. So
actually, it might be so again, like I've already spoiled the Krim reveal. So it could be Krim noted how Cisco acted and was like, I think it's okay to let him live because it might be like he basically might have shielded him, like just keep your main mission of Kira Nerys.
Unfortunately, I think that'd be a cool interpretation, but I don't think that's the case here. Based on what we see in a few seconds, that's very much like it makes sense why they would never have gone after Cisco. But they confirm that the Cardassians are helping fund the Circle. So the Circle, which hates Cardassians kind of the most, is being funded by them, but secretly. So Minister Jaro is part of the circle. In fact, he says he is the circle. He like runs the whole thing.
I am the circle. Yep.
Uh, and the reason they kidnapped Kira is they actually want to ask her how Cisco would respond to them taking back. I think like to them taking over the provisional government because the reason he explains he hates the provisional government because the nature, even its name, implies that it's not a real government. It's a government that exists
Yeah.
at the will of someone else. And
Yeah.
let's see, he's basically trying to like grill her for it's like, what would the Federation do once our objective becomes clear, Major? I need to know how this Cisco will respond. And Kira refuses to tell him, and then he basically says she's going to get tortured. So,
Yeah.
and she's constantly going after him. It's like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to change the government. You have to do it by voting. You have to do it by doing it the proper way. And he's like, there's no other way. So, he's just gone full extremist mode. And Kira basically gets tortured for it, which is unfortunate. Cisco returns back to DS9, and they're having let's see, what happens in this scene? Because, yeah, they know that Kira was kidnapped. Because the Baral told them, like, oh yeah, there's no signs of a struggle. She just like vanished. And Cisco's trying to figure out when Odo's due back. It's not for another 12 hours. But then Quark comes in. He says, hey guys, guess what I figured out? I know where the guns are going. And it's all thanks to me, your deputy.
You're deputy. Who deputy? Like Cisco just looks around. Okay, who's getting demoted for deputizing him?
I'm trying
Who
to find
did
the
it?
exact. I'm trying to find the exact line. It's where is it? Oh yeah, he's basically yeah. Odo blackmailed me into helping. I'm his number one deputy. That's what he says. He's like, I'm Odo's number one deputy. It's like, God damn it, Quark. And then this is where you pointed out it's continuity error because they use the runabout to go rescue Kira. Lee Nollis goes with
And
them.
they
He says Lee Nollis goes with them. He says he's more comfortable fighting than being on the station. Cisco agrees. And then yeah, this is the continuity error you pointed out.
yeah, so they get they go rescue her. Nothing much happens in terms of like story and like in terms of dialogue, so we can but they when they find her and then they're like beam us out. They don't do it two by two as they said it would have to be in the previous episode. Instead, they just all go up at once, which is like, no, that's not what you've established as how this works. It's two at a time, and that's why you couldn't like just beam every Bajoran out of that situation. Like
So
just a con.
the counter I would preface is last episode because we looked it up when we looked up the like stats of the runabout. They make a point that they're very modular ships. So when they were going to rescue Lee Nollis, they thought it was only Lee Nollis they were rescuing. So
True.
maybe they made, and they had a lot of other modifications to the ship. So it's possible they were like, we're not going to need to teleport more than two people. So I'm going to like maybe, I don't know, remove power from that to give us different flight capabilities. I don't know what O'Brien did to the ship, right? And here, it's like, no. We need to get in and get out quickly. We need full transporter optimization. Maybe that's what they did. Again, this is a very common thing in Star Trek, which is they don't want to give definitive answers because they know nerds are going to be critical about it. So, like, that's why there's no canon map of Star Trek. Like, there's no canon map of the galaxy. We only have estimated maps. There's no canon, like, rule set for how fast warp travel is because they don't want to make those rules. And, here it's like, yep, the runabout. It's very modular. Why? So it can do whatever we need it to do for the episode. It's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, like, I get it. But yeah, they rescue Kira. Big fight. Bashir's actually the one who rescues Kira. Like he sort of gets in, which I'm sitting there thinking like I guess they thought she might have been injured, so they brought Bashir. But I'm not gonna lie, if he's again, this is a problem in a lot of Star Trek. He's your head doctor. He should never be on a mission.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'd be okay with him being like the field medic. Like there's another doctor who's like the head of DS9, and like Bashir's like his right hand man, but Bashir himself is like, yeah, I'm more of a field medic. I want to go run in there and save the day and be a hero. And then the other medic is like gonna be some old guy or old woman who's like, yeah, I've been a medic for 50 years. Like I'm not running around anymore. I'm staying in here and curing diseases.
Just the cat from what's it called?
Lower decks.
Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, they rescue Kira. Let's see, and they heal her wound, which really they she's like, we don't have time for this, and Bashir's like, nah, we're gonna keep doing this, and really it's just to justify not having the blood makeup on her because they put her in some pretty nasty blood makeup, like to sort of show how she's been tortured.
Yeah.
But she apparently didn't break, so that's pretty impressive. I mean, we know she could probably withstand torture just because of her upbringing, but
Yeah.
let's see. You know, they obviously realize now the Chamber of Ministers is like tainted or like threatened by Jaro. Let's see. They figure out where the weapons are coming from. Odo basically confirms this. Let's see. Oh, and this is another issue I have because at one point they're trying to reach the the ministers because they want to report on Jaro's crimes and they want to report on the fact that he's running the circle and all this other stuff. Uh, so Cisco calls Dax and says, "Open a channel to Bajor," and she says, "I can't do it, Benjamin. All frequencies are jammed. We lost communication with the planet 5 minutes ago." I'm like, bitch, the moment you lose communication with a planet, why did you not immediately tell Cisco?
Yeah.
Like, if it was like down for like a second or two, you'd be like, oh, that's weird. Like maybe it's some sort of interference or like what's going on. It's like, oh, it's back up. Okay, no big deal. But if it's been on for 5 minutes, you should immediately be like, are we setting the alarm off? Like, this is
Should be.
emergency. It
Yeah.
should not. She should not have waited that long. It's for the story, but it's very stupid that like Dax had not mentioned to Cisco that. By the way, we can't communicate with the major planet that we're supposed to be communicating with.
Hmm.
Oh, and then we get the reveal that Jaro and Win are working together.
Well, yeah.
So
Before this, I
it
would
gets
not
more
say.
complicated.
Yeah, I don't think before this, Win was on board, but it's like, yeah, she's down.
Well, so there's clearly like romantic tension between them. Jaro seems to like be attracted to Win. Win is a little bit hesitant.
Mm.
But he wants her support, and she's like, "Look, I'm a very small sect. We're not really going to give you a lot of support. Hell, at this point in time, even the assembly doesn't listen. When they're selecting the new Kai, my voice is rarely heard." And Jaro says, "I can change that. If it's like if you support me, I will join your sect, and as the new like leader of Bajor under your sect, you will clearly be the best choice for Kai." Which that makes sense. There's an element of like we want the Kai to like basically we want the Kai to be the person who is also has the ear of the provision of the government, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
it's a political position. But Jaro clearly seems to be like romantically attracted to her, and I'm sitting there like, what do you see in Win? No offense to the actress, but what do you see in her?
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, everyone, just so you know, I play a gotcha game called Limbus Company, and the joke in that community is like, "Man, you all just want to fuck the old ladies, don't you?" It's like he's got that old lady. He wants to hag. It's just how it is. It's just be that way.
Well, anyway, I mean, like, Win does seem to like reciprocate, but you know,
Yeah.
and then they kind of like stand in the sunset. It's actually not a bad like shot. I kind of want to
Yeah.
see if I can get it. Let's see if I can get it. It's kind of like them standing like in the light. Yeah, that's a really nice shot. The prophets are smiling on you today, Minister. Um, Also, there's a scene where Cisco is asking, "I want to speak to Admiral Chakotay." Now, if you don't know,
Different Chipotle.
it's interesting because we were talking about Voyager before. It's almost like I planned that. Uh,
Oh.
so Chakotay is the first officer of Voyager. He's a member of the Maquis. He's a they. There's obviously a lot of controversy here because apparently he's meant to be a Native American who still has like strong ties to his Native American tribe, but apparently the Native American expert that they hired for Voyager was a fraud, if I
He's not
recall.
an expert.
Yeah, he was
He was
not.
a fraud. Yeah.
He was a fraud. So a lot of their stuff ended up getting like, oh shit, like this is the opposite of what we wanted. We wanted to represent this on here, and instead we kind of flanderized it or made it look stupid. Um,
Yeah, and he's just like, I
oh
don't
yeah,
have
and
a
the actor also just didn't feel like he was given just
Oh
like
yeah.
he didn't feel like his role was respected, and he wasn't really given a lot of good material to work with, which is fair. Uh, but
Yeah.
it's
Sorry,
funny because
bud, you're not Harry Kid.
he has
Hmm.
like he has actually I don't think it's pronounced the same. Let's see here. Star Trek Voyager Chakotay.
Chakotay. It's both
Um
Chakotays. Yeah. I think it's spelled differently, but yeah.
uh okay, for some reason Chakotay. I put in why okay, you know what? I'm just gonna ignore this for now. But either way, when I heard that, I was like, are we gonna get like some sort of deeper lore that oh yeah, like it is actually spelled the same way. Oh
Yeah.
no, wait, hold on.
Uh,
So in DS9, it is spelled with an E at the end. With Chakotay from Voyager, it's
EEY.
T A Y. So
Yeah.
it's a little different, but it was like, oh, is this? Because I thought maybe we were gonna get interesting lore of like this guy's maybe related to that other Chakotay, and then we see him on the screen, and
Oh,
it's a white
TE.
guy. So I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess they could be related, but I doubt it. Just because I
Oh,
thought it
he
was.
also shows up in I looked him up. He also shows up in TNG, in Gambit Part 1.
Yeah,
He sends
he
Riker.
he looks familiar, but you know, this is where we're probably getting into another big discussion. So Cisco's talking to him, and he says like, he asks, "Are you preparing to withdraw given the circumstances here?" And Cisco's like, "Look, we just obtained evidence Circle's been receiving weapons from Cardassians. If we withdraw, we'll be giving Bajor and the wormhole back to them." Chakotay says, "That's a hell of a turn. How can these Bajorans get in the bed with the Cardassians?" And Cisco's like, "They don't even know they're involved." And Chakotay says, "Then you're saying this is a genuine political revolution internal to Bajor?" And Cisco says, like, supported by the Cardassians, like, yeah, but internal to Bajor, which the Prime Directive applies here, Ben. We don't get involved. Like, the Cardassians get involved in the People's Civil Wars. We don't. So I have a few issues here. We're going to revisit my biggest problem with DS9 right now, which is this wormhole is so important. You should have been having
Fuck the Prime
multiple vessels.
Directive.
Not even fuck the Prime Directive. Like, there's a huge discussion to be had about the Prime Directive. That's a different conversation. The wormhole is so important. You should have immediately fast tracked Bajor into the Federation. Hey, do you have a stable government? No. That's a requirement to join the Federation, right? It's like, yeah, we don't give a shit. You're in. Like, the whole point is you would want them in there. You want ships around this wormhole. The fact that they're just giving the wormhole back to Cardassians is actually infuriating. Because that's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, this is a problem with, like, initially it's a problem with all of DS9, right? Once this wormhole is discovered, the entire nature of the series should have been changed. It can't just be fun frontier adventures with people who are like, oh yeah, we're on the edge of the Federation, so we're dealing in uncharted territory, but also like we're dealing with a lot of political issues that we can't just rely on Big Daddy Federation to solve.
They wanted that. It needed to be a less important but still important resource of like, oh, it's something that's needed for like
I mean, like, you don't even. I wouldn't even say do a important resource. Literally, just say like it is you have an entire story about trying to bring Bajor into the Federation, one planet, right? That is a planet's worth of people and their culture into the Federation. Like, yeah, it's not huge and bombastic, but you can still make that well written. Instead, they made, which this is the core of the series, so I'm not going to say that this is like, oh, instead they made this. This wormhole is so important. You don't like you're. This is the most important thing the Federation's ever discovered, other than like warp travel. So it's just one of those things where it's like this is you can't not investigate this, or you can't not like maintain this, and they're just willing to give it up. Now we get into the conversation. That's an issue that kind of permeates a lot of DS9. However, the issue here is the Prime Directive. We might have to have an entire fucking episode talking about the Prime Directive, and like I like it, how it's used a lot. Here, I think it's used very poorly. You're already involved with Bajor. You already have officers here. The Prime Directive's purpose is that, like, oh yeah, we don't involve ourselves in the affairs of other cultures and other planets and stuff like that. But I guess like the issue is, what was it? There was something where, I mean, here's the thing: Bajor is. So in the original series, the Prime Directive primarily related to non-spacefaring like planets, right? If they weren't spacefaring, you didn't interact with them because you might impact their culture in unforeseeable ways. TNG obviously kind of expanded it a little bit to be like, okay, it's generally a method of governance that we use, which is like, okay, I actually kind of respect that in my mind, right? If you're a captain on a ship, right? When you're on the frontier of space, you don't have the ability to ask for guidance or permission from the Federation or Starfleet, right? So for you have to make decisions on your own. There's going to be situations where it's like, hey, do you stop this planet from being obliterated, or do you protect it, or do you intervene in this civil war? A captain is going to need to make those decisions. Now, here's the thing: a lack of a decision is still a decision, right? It's like if
Mhm.
you can stop something from happening and you don't, you have made a decision there. Now,
Mhm.
the prime, as I view it, and there's a lot of stuff that's like discusses this. As I view it, the prime directive is this catch-all freebie for captains, right? If you're not sure how your actions are going to affect this culture, this group of people, these multiple governments, these interplanetary species, you can just wipe your hands clean and say, "Prime directive, I don't want to be involved." And that is a catch-all for any captains traversing star like space, right? If
Mhm.
you're a captain and you don't think you can make an informed decision on what side to choose in a conflict or what decision to make, the prime directive is your safety net. It is the understanding that as
Yeah.
a captain, you will not be judged. Because here's the thing: as a policy matter, right? You don't want to
Mhm.
compel your captains to take action that they're not sure on. So if you have a captain in the
Mhm.
frontier of space where they are the supreme authority over their ship and they encounter a problem, you don't want to encourage policy to force them to act, right? You don't want, it's like, we
Mhm.
don't want to compel you to act if you're going to do something stupid. So the prime directive
Mhm.
exists to say, if you don't feel you can do this, don't. And you cannot be
Mhm.
blamed for that as captain. You followed the prime directive. It's it's a
Mhm.
it is a policy matter because otherwise captains would just want to avoid these circumstances entirely, or they might feel compelled to get involved because they can be punished for not getting involved. You know,
Yeah.
if you saw a planet where it's like, oh yeah, an asteroid was flying towards this planet, and the captain's like, hey, do we divert it with our tractor beam? And the captain sits there and thinks, yeah, we have to do that. And then you divert the asteroid, but by diverting the asteroid, you caused some other fucking problem. Like it flies into the sun and destroys their sun or something, right? Like something stupid, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, I didn't know the asteroid was filled with like sun destroying uranium. Uh, it's like, okay, but it's like you shouldn't have acted. You were not aware of all the facts, but you acted. That's a very stupid hypothetical, but the whole point
Yeah.
is the prime directive to me always is just a freebie policy of saying it's better to not act and not fuck up the Federation and Starfleet's reputation than to act and do something
Mhm.
stupid. So we give you that
Yeah.
freebie. You as a captain can sleep at night knowing that you are not going to be punished for inaction.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, there's other reasons to have it, but I definitely do not think it applies here.
Yeah.
I think here it's
Yeah.
like you're already involved with Bajor. Bajor is a spacefaring like society that you're trying to bring into the Federation. It's around a wormhole that you have. You might literally have ships from the Federation, science vessels, and like other ships exploring the Gamma Quadrant right now.
They could end up trapped there. Yeah. Like,
Like they're gonna come through the wormhole, and there's gonna be a Cardassian army sitting there.
yeah.
Like this is like one of those things, but unfortunately they have to leave the station. Cisco goes to O'Brien and says like, we need to get off here, and O'Brien says like, look, we can evacuate all the people in 3 hours, but if you want, but when Cisco's like, I want all of our like equipment and stuff like like to go with us because I don't want to leave it here. O'Brien's like, that's gonna take a week's, that's gonna take a long time. Um,
Oh, wow. That's so awful. I guess we'll just have to stick around and do all that work
yeah,
till it
literally he says,
happens.
I guess some of us won't be quite done by the time they get here. So it's like, yeah, we're sticking here, buddy. And that's how the episode ends. Um,
Yep.
Not a bad episode. I think it's a fair. There's a lot of good stuff here. We get a lot of good character interactions. Uh, all in all,
Mhm.
I gave it a B. There's a few problems. There's a few things that I'm like, that's a bit weird. Again, see the prime directive
Yeah.
discussion. See the what was the other major issue I had? I mean, I guess there's the issue with the runabouts and their transporter, but that's probably justified. All in
Mhm.
all, I think this is a pretty good episode. I give it a B. I think it's a fairly solid one.
Yeah.
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 All
I
right.
agree.
I mean, do we have? It's hard to talk more about this because the next episode is the finale to this three-parter. So we should probably save some bigger thoughts overall going forward. But yeah,
I
overall
mean,
good
we could go ahead
episode.
and start that one after this. We can go ahead and start doing that episode right after this. I don't mind if you've got
We
time.
can. But anyway, um, yep, that is it for Star Trek DS9 Season 2, Episode 2, The Circle. We will see you all next time. Say bye, Pike. I'm not going to cut you off this time, I swear to God.
I already said bye.
Oh, well, it didn't come through. Or, okay, that's going to count. All
Oh,
right, bye, everybody.
okay.